today's town hall. We're in the Paul W. Bryant Museum. I'm here with the director, Ken Gaddy, and the reason we're here, of course, is because it's Alabama-Auburn Week, also known as the Iron Bowl. Ken, let's talk about the history of the Iron Bowl, even before it was the Iron Bowl, because it has a unique history.
That's right. Alabama and Auburn started playing in 1893, and they actually played twice in that calendar year. So that kind of throws people off sometimes when I'm looking at the statistics.
And that was in Birmingham.
Trying to figure out, yes. And then Alabama won the first game in 1894. We have a ball from that y'all show, 18-0. And then they played through 1907, and they got into dispute over travel money.
Yeah, a lot of people, there's a myth there about that it was over bad blood, but it was about travel money.
Right, it just came down to money, and Alabama wanted to pay Auburn $3 travel money per player, and they wanted $3.50. So it worked out to be like $34 total.
So how many games did they play before they stopped?
They played through 07, so I had to do the math real quick.
So they started in
93.
93, okay, well, 15, 16.
Yeah.
And then from 07 to 1948.
They didn't play at all. There were a couple of tries, people would try to set something up, but, in some ways it was really an advantage for Alabama to be the state university and not play. So there was not a lot of incentive to play.
Kind of like UAB now.
That's right. Well, it's just kind of that same story.
And that's back when Auburn was Alabama Polytechnical Institute.
That's right.
To a lot of people.
That's right.
Is it true that it took an act of the legislature to get them to play again,
or
is that another myth?
Well, I think the story is the presidents just decided it was time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they told the staff to get it done. And so, it worked back out. And there was a lot of letters back and forth, and there's some copies even in this book here of some of those letters where they're trying to work out some of the details. And they were worried, in the letters, they were worried about the politics of it. The legislature getting involved and pressure from the governor and other people using it to their advantage a little bit, trying to get their name out there.
Would it be fair to say Auburn wanted to play more than Alabama did?
That's probably the case. I would think so.
All right, so they started back in 48, the year I was born, and played at Legion Field.
Well, yes, and
Mobile sometimes. Or did they ever play?
Legion Field. This game, Alabama has played in Mobile,
but not
in the Iron, what became the Iron Bowl. And it was really a big deal for the state. And we'll look at a ticket here in a minute. They actually had a closed circuit TV broadcast called TV Demonstration.
In 1948.
In 48, they're trying to sell TV to the public. So that was literally the first pay-per-view game for Alabama was the Auburn game in 1948.
Probably a lot cheaper than Comcast is today.
That's right.
I don't know.
And there was supposedly a ceremony where the Student Government Association presidents from Alabama and Auburn met in Birmingham in what is now Lynn Park and literally buried the hatchet in the park.
Really?
And there's been a couple of people trying to find that, but they haven't out there with a metal detector trying to find it. But there's a couple of newspaper stories where they were literally buried the hatchet. I
have not heard that. So how long did they play? They played at Legion Field from 48 through 89?
And 89 was at Auburn.
I was there. That was not it.
And everybody thinks of all the games being a 50-50 split on the tickets. Well, actually, that 88 game was not a 50-50. It was Alabama's home game, and they had most of the tickets. Auburn got like 10,000 tickets for that game, so it was a true Alabama home game. In Birmingham.
No, in Birmingham.
In 88.
In 88.
And then 89.
Right, that's right, I remember.
And then 89 was the first one that was going back and forth on home campus. And there's some advantages to doing that, mainly recruiting, because you can't take students off campus, so
exactly.
So they can recruit, and then for the university for recruiting, the president and the deans, you got everybody on campus, and you can do those kind of things, the fundraising type of things that they also do on game day.
There's a lot of advantage of getting out of decrepit old Legion Field.
Well, yeah, and plus just being, I think on campus, the atmosphere and what it does for the city as a whole, for the businesses and all that. It's a big advantage to have it in Tuscaloosa.
Of course, now there were some great games played at Legion Field. What's the first one you remember is?
Well, I remember the '71 Auburn game. Johnny Musso is kind of one that sticks out in my mind. It's the first one I can remember. Of course, the Van Tiffin game in '85. We didn't really have a good team.
Yeah.
But pull that one out the last second. That's the one that stands out.
I think the first one I ever went to was the year Pat Sullivan won the Heisman Trophy, and then we just throttled them 35-7 or something, and that would have been the late '60s. And then there was the Bama punt game. I was in the press box for that one too.
And what was that? 72.
Yeah.
We try to forget that. When people ask for that video, we just tell we don't have that one. So
that has to be the most amazing game. I mean, Auburn could still be out there with their offense against our defense and not have scored a touchdown.
That's right. And the two blocks look like replays of each other.
Exactly.
They're almost exactly the same play.
And after that, of course, by this time you had this great rivalry between Coach Bryant and Suge Jordan, who was a coach at Auburn for many years, and they were good friends. And I think Bryant probably liked him a little more than he would have otherwise because he beat him most of the time.
That's right. And, of course, during Coach Bryant's time as a player in the mid-'30s, Tennessee was a big game.
Mm-hmm.
And
we weren't playing Auburn.
Right, you weren't playing Auburn. And if you ask the older players, the Tennessee, in their mind, is the big game, not Auburn.
And, of course, we've got the ball over here from...
the 3:15 game.
3:15 game.
Doesn't that just fall right into history that the Auburn game was the big rivalry game, and when Coach Bryant broke the then record from Stagg, that 3:15 game would have been against Auburn.
Mm-hmm. And beating Auburn set up a lot of national championship games.
That's right, and a lot of times, and that would be the talk. You go back and read the press clippings. They're getting ready for the national championship, going to a Sugar Bowl or Orange Bowl, but unless you beat Auburn, it doesn't mean anything. So it makes it a big game for a lot of different reasons. Even if Auburn wasn't the best team that time, you still had to beat them to get you that gateway game, if you will.
In '92, the last time they won the national championship, when Coach Stallings was here, didn't they shut out Auburn? Oh, I can't.
I'd have to double check, but I believe so.
And I believe that was Pat Dye's last game.
It was Pat Dye's.
And then I know they shut him out and went on to beat.
And there's a great picture of Stallings and Dye before the game, because he knows it's his last game. They're not going to a bowl game. Of course, they're friends. They've coached.
They've got a television commercial on that I've seen here recently.
Dye was a coach here for 10 years, assistant coach.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the museum. When was it founded?
Museum opened in '88. Before Coach Bryant passed away in '92, about 1981 or so, he had sent out a letter to some former players wanting to start something, and his original idea would be something on the concourse of Coleman Coliseum. And they said, well, Coach, we can do more than that.
This thing big, yeah.
Yeah, so the exhibit hall grew, not for just Coach Bryant's time, but for the entire football history. So we start with the first team in 1892, go all the way through today. And they said we can do more in the collection side, which is behind us, with the archives, have all the old game films, this kind of material that we got out here today, tens of thousands of photographs, and they get used all the time, like in these books.
And you do a lot of research and study here, I understand.
That's right. So we do some original work. We've got one book.
Y'all are not responsible for all these books, but writing Alabama books is a cottage industry, almost like painting Alabama pictures.
So this is an Alabama-Auburn rivalry book that David Housel, who was at Auburn,
but came from Gordo,
right? And Tommy Ford, who works here, right across the street, wrote together, and they kind of go back and forth on who won, who wrote that chapter, and there are several other books that have been written through the years.
Bragg and Wright, the War in Dixie. When did it get the moniker the Iron Bowl?
Well,
because I remember growing up not hearing that until. When?
Yeah, and to me it sounds, I don't know exactly, but it sounds like a PR thing from the city of Birmingham for their iron and steel industry. That's the obvious
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into my pet peeve about how it's not the Iron Bowl anymore since we don't play in Birmingham.
Well, you're not the only one that does that. If it's not.
I think they ought to have an Iron Bowl, cast iron bowl as a trophy, and just play for the Iron Bowl. But that's just me. Well, we'll wrap it up now. Except I have to ask you, what's your prediction for Friday?
I think it'll be a tough game early. I think our defense will wear them down. We'll pull away in the fourth quarter.
Score?
I'll take a guess, 28-7.
Well, I'm going 35-0 Bama at the half. That's what I always predict. And click in next week for another town hall.